let's jump right into this book. It's Asterix and Obelix and the Great Crossing. Well, Asterix and the Great Crossing, but Obelix is the other character. But let's jump right into it. Boom! Only bookmark worth having, a Packins Land omnibus bookmark. All right, so here's the joke. Here's the joke. Here's the comedy that is displayed in these wonderful books. And I just want to, if you haven't read these, if you haven't checked these out, Asterix and these comics, I recommend you do. They're great. They're funny. There is a lot to love in them. And I think that if you were to check them out, you would enjoy them as well. All right, here we go. Asterix and Obelix. This is Obelix. He's the big guy. Asterix is a small guy. They are in the New World. They're in the Americas. All right. They've had some turkey already. They've found turkeys. They've enjoyed the taste of turkey. He thinks he hears another one. Gobble, gobble, right? So he goes to the tree. I'm going to shake that turkey out of that tree. So he shakes it. Boom! Down falls this Indian fella. And you see here, he's seeing birds. They're eagles. Reference to America. United States of America. All right, so he drags him off. And he finds Asterix's helmet. And he knows, oh man, Asterix has been taken or something. I need to find him. Where is he? This guy jumps up. He's going to attack him. But whap, he gets smacked. Right? Then we get another joke, which is he's seeing stars and reminiscent of the American flag. Now let's talk about this. Just within these 2 pages, right, we're getting a bunch of jokes. And this is a whole sequence of individual jokes. There are callbacks. So when he's knocked out, he sees American symbology. There's a joke there. Him falling out of the tree, physical comedy. Him getting hit, physical comedy. Unexpected things happening in funny ways. That's often comedy, right? You set up a joke and you have a punchline, or you a physical gag. You have Dick Van Dyke tripping over an ottoman, or something like that. Now, I think, having read some of these, that this is the mastery of doing this for a really long time. I've read some earlier ones of these, and while they're funny, they might not have these jokes that pay off over the span of a few pages. And something to keep in mind is, this is actually, I didn't count all these, but look how many of these came out before it. All here, all the way down here in the Great Crossing. So that's how many comics they had done to get to that point, where they're able to do something like this. Again, I haven't read all of them. I don't know when they got really good. But I'm saying this is a lot of talent and a lot of work and a lot of knowledge going into making a good comic. All right, so we go to the next page. They go to the village. We're getting interactions with the village. They don't speak a common language, so they're having to explain what happened. And that is a gag that goes throughout with them not being able to speak to the people around them. All right, so this guy, he's going to explain to the chief what happened. He says, I was up in the tree and I said, gobble, gobble. This guy, big lug over here, he came over and he shook the tree, shook it, and I fell out of the tree onto my head. And then I ran at him with a weapon and whap! He actually gets hit again. So here he is. He's just trying to explain what happened to the chief, explain what went on, and he gets hit again. This time even worse. He's thrown off of the panel. He's thrown off of the page, out of his feet, and you just see this smack. As Obelix doesn't know what's going on. He thinks, oh, he's running at me. I need to defend myself. He doesn't know this is just him demonstrating what happened, so he gets smacked again. There's a joke that's set up a page before. You see all of this sequence and it happens, and then it's not just thrown away and forgotten about. These characters have a history, right? They have something that happened before, and that's thought about as they're going forward. These events are called back to in ways throughout the comic. This isn't the only way that things are called back to. And then again, he's knocked out. You see American symbology here with the stars and stripes. This is mastery. This is comedy. And there are beautiful images throughout this whole book, right? But in this sequence, it's just normal panels. But this is a display of that mastery, right? Because if you have this as the whole page, right, of him getting smacked, and it was on this page, you're taking up a lot of space to put that you could put other jokes in. This is comedy, right? This is supposed to be funny. You should put as many as you possibly can in it. Instead of drawing a big splash page of a character landing in the scene or getting smacked, you have a bunch of little jokes packed into it because you're not taking up a whole page drawing one thing. In fact, this panel is, relatively the same size as the rest of them. Some of them are a little bit smaller, some bigger, some are about the same size. It's not designed to be the forefront in terms of the art. It's just as competent as any other panel in terms of how it's drawn. What it's designed to be is the punchline of the joke. It's the writing that's standing out here. It's the cartooning, the physical comedy of this whole situation, right? He's able to, boom, jump and lay it on his head just like he did. He's shaking the tree and all this stuff. He's pointing. It's all funny. The posing here is funny. His crossed arms. He's running at him and then smack. And so this is on the forefront. This isn't right in your face. This panel is something you come to organically because you're following the story, you're reading it. You don't look at this panel. You're following the story. You're used to reading a comic. You come along here, and then boom, it's a surprise. It's not what you thought was going to happen. You don't really, I didn't really think about what was going to happen. He's just explaining what's happening, and Obelix doesn't know that, so he smacks him. That's the type of thought that should be going into comics. It shouldn't just be like, well, how can I make the character say something funny? Right? Because there's no audible jokes other than how, right? Right? That's a joke. It's a funny joke. But there's those little jokes too as well. But there's not like he's setting up a verbal punchline, right? You're getting these funny images. You're getting a little funny joke here. But the overall joke that's been set up over 2 pages is all about the cartooning and the underlying narrative writing of this is what's going to happen on these panels. And it's paid off with this gag. A lot of times people will draw a big splash page or a big splash panel to have their big moment, their big impact. This is a big impact done mostly through the writing. And then, of course, the cartooning is there to bring that to life. But it's not like there's a huge splash page of just showing off of this gag, right? Because it's supposed to be a surprise. In order to make this a surprise, you have to have it on the reverse page. You have this set up, and then you have it on the reverse page, and you take up a huge page. Because if it's here, that's the first thing you're going to see when you turn the page, right? Because a lot of times, if there's a big panel, that's what you notice. But here, there's just a bunch of small panels. You're not really seeing it. And you go here, you follow it all the way through. Again, you're not looking at this panel because it's not that much different than the rest of them in terms of its importance in the overall format of the comic, right? The overall composition. Another thing to note is that another way this panel is made to stand out is that you have blue panels, boom, yellow. The colors here are used to be a little bit different. They could have just had another blue panel with people in the background and things. But again, you see a background here of Indian sitting in the background. Here's a TP. He's standing. He hasn't moved. He's in the same spot. He's in the same pose. He barely moves. He just moves his arm up, and that's how strong he is, right? But here we have the use of an artistic medium to here's the impact, right? It's not just these impact point here and him flying off this way and his arm coming up this way with that motion, but it's also the use of color to separate it from what's come before. The yellow impact, a flash of light, all of those things, and then right back to having a background with the blue. So it stands out on the page as well. That's the mastery that we're talking about here in terms of these comics. And I think we, as people who like comics today, we're so used to a certain style, and we don't really go for things like this a lot of the time. A lot of people want more realistic looking comics, or the highly, big splash pages, or what's cool. And we're kind of stuck in this idea of the 90s. And I think going back to something like this, something simpler, something where you're putting all of your time and effort into these simple drawings, not worrying about, I'm going to have a huge, heavily rendered splash page, a lot of detail, but putting my time and effort into the story, into the jokes, into the gags, into the drama, and putting as many jokes into one page as possible. How many jokes do we have here, right? Let's set aside the simple like funniness of the drawings, the comedy of the drawings here. How? There's one joke, right? Then if we just count this as one joke, here we go. And then we also have the stars and stripes. So here's a page where every panel is funny because of how it's drawn, the physical comedy parts. But just if we separate these, right? We just take out these panels, isn't it? That, because we call this one joke, but there's funny things in all of the panels. We've got 2 jokes. Whereas in a lot of comics, the way they're drawn with big panels, big splash pages, things like that, you don't have as much room to put jokes. It's all in the writing. It's just people standing around, like drinking a cup of coffee or something and making a joke. And it might be a funny joke. I've seen this in comic books that I like, and I think the joke is funny, or sometimes I think it's stupid and it was a waste of their time. But as often it's just characters standing around doing nothing. Here we have a page that has multiple jokes. And that's throughout this comic. I don't want to, but I'm focusing on this one. And it's all done on one page, right? Whereas in today's comics, it might take a span of a few pages. Here we've got, in a span of a few pages, a bunch of jokes, callbacks to jokes, references. That's mastery. Adios.